to Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and this morning we're continuing our coverage of two live trials, both happening in Florida. In Sarasota County, the plaintiffs in the Take Care of Maya civil case are set to rest their case in chief today, with the defense case starting soon thereafter. We'll bring you updates throughout the day on this multi-million-dollar tug of war between the Kowalskis and Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. But first, we begin our coverage in Orlando. Testimony in the bathtub murder case set to resume at any minute. Defendant David Tronnes stands trial for first-degree murder, but with claims of mental health issues and questionable details surrounding his wife's death. So how will this affect his defense case? For us, let me bring in my guest, Dr. Carole Lieberman, forensic psychiatrist, body language expert, and author. Good morning to you ladies. Thanks for being on the show. Let's just start with our general assessments, where we are at this point. We're starting up week 2 of this case. Got a couple days in yesterday, but we've seen a good bit of the evidence. Dr. Carole, what are you thinking about this guy?
Well, first of all, it seems clear that he must be guilty. I mean, who else did it? But, you know, this case reminds me of a case that I saw on Law and Order, SVU, where the mother didn't want to go on a reality show or didn't want to continue on a reality show. And the father killed her. I don't know if you saw that. But in this case, they were not getting along. Obviously, the money, the house was causing lots of friction. And I think the thing that did it in the end was her not wanting to be on the show.
Okay. And so, you know, with respect to this guy, I guess, let me be more clear in my question. Is he a sociopath or is he someone suffering from schizophrenia? Based on what you've seen, and I know you haven't had the benefit of an in-person evaluation, Dr. Carole, what are the pieces of evidence saying to you at this point?
Well, his demeanor, you know, on the 911 call and when the police came and so on, they talked about how he seemed like he was feigning grief. He did seem, from the call that we just heard, he did seem like he was all over the place. And the fact that he wasn't competent to stand trial for 5 years, that says a lot. You know, that says that there really was something significantly wrong, schizophrenia or some kind of a severe mental illness, or else he would have been able to be made competent sooner than that.
All right, Dr. Carole, thank you. Sergeant Pinkleton, oh boy, do I have a clip for you. This is in the interrogation room. We're going to play this and we're going to talk on the other side. The detective is calling this guy out, saying that he has been fake crying for hours. You know, I got to tell you, just the way he talks kind of gives me the creeps. How about you at home? Let us know on social media. It's just eerie. It doesn't seem like somebody who's devastated at the loss of their wife and this tragedy that's just occurred in their beloved home. Dr. Carole, if you were in the room with him at that point in time, what would you ask that guy?
Well, I would ask him about you know, how he puts it all together, like how he figures the way he describes her. And she wasn't all wet. You know, the detectives were saying that he said that she was in water and so on. Her clothes were damp, but she wasn't as wet as he described, which also kind of speaks to perhaps some kind of a psychological problem that he didn't realize that what he was telling didn't make any sense with what the scene was. But so I would try to ask him to explain it, like how, if she was like that, what you just said, how does that match with how you said that she died?
Okay, so kind of put him on the spot, grill him a bit. Yeah, what made the reason behind it be? If he did murder his wife, as the state of Florida says he did, why might have he wanted her dead? Dr. Carole, would you weigh in on that, please?
Sure. Well, for one thing, you know, he had told her that he had millions of dollars. And I think she was getting closer to realizing that that wasn't true. She wrote something about how he's being really cheap in terms of fixing the house. And then he was saying he put, you know, at least $1 million towards it. So I think a few things were coming to a head, that he didn't want to be discovered, you know, and of course he wasn't working the whole time that he was there. And he didn't want to be discovered. And I think even though this producer was saying that she was somewhat at the meeting, you don't know what happened afterwards. And it seems to me that really she obviously wasn't that excited about it, and perhaps she put her foot down even more. And people do really rash kinds of things, when if they want to be on television or want to see this as the solution for their house. They were already sleeping in different rooms, so the relationship was not great. It was getting worse. Also, I just want to say, yes, he may well have some sociopathic trends or traits, but that wouldn't explain, sociopathy would not explain why he needed 5 years to be made competent to stand trial. Perhaps it's not schizophrenia. I'm not saying that it's necessarily schizophrenia. It could be bipolar disorder, which could explain some of his where he spent his money on or something or other. I don't know what the other psych component is, but it doesn't take 5 years to cure someone or to make someone competent to stand trial if they're only sociopathic.
So you think something else is definitely going on there besides the sociopathy, if he is in fact sociopathic.
Right.
Which he may be. We'll see as this trial rolls on. Dr. Carole, you are a medical doctor, and when we have the story about, drowning in the bathtub, that's really tragic and sad, versus, wait a second, at autopsy, her hyoid bone is broken. How might that happen? Manual strangulation, perhaps? And also we've got the head trauma and the bruising here. Would you speak to how these stories are just so incredibly inconsistent?
Yes, it's almost like, trying to find something to explain all of it, and he keeps changing his story. It's interesting. So there really isn't any clear, I'm sure when we hear from the person who did the autopsy, they'll be able to put it together better, but it's really not connected to the things that he's been telling about what happened.
Right. She drowns in the bathtub. Wait a second. Let's talk about how she got beat up. Let's talk about, when I think a broken hyoid bone, I always think of what I learned from the great Dr. Cyril Wecht. Manual strangulation causes that. Yes. Dr. Carole Lieberman, a guy like this, if he's a sociopath, and we don't know if he is, do you think it's likely he's going to want to get up there and take the stand?
Well, not necessarily. He'd also have to be narcissistic, which he may well be. Yes, he might well do that, because especially if things are looking rather grim. But, the thing is that his attorney had apparently tried to ask for not guilty by reason of insanity, to change the plea to that. And the judge, I don't know if it's the same judge or a judge, wouldn't let her do that, or wouldn't let his lawyer do that, because she had missed the deadline. Well, isn't that just right from the get-go grounds for appeal for him?
Dr. Carole, I'm glad you brought that up. Kelly Craft and I were talking about that a short time ago on my show, Opening Statements. It could potentially be problematic. Kelly was looking into that, the filing and the rationale behind that. I just wonder if they would have the expert testimony to support it, if there is somebody who would in fact say what went on here, because we have what looks more like a cover-up, what looks an awful lot like somebody who is manufacturing a story here.